Hi, I'm Kara McNall and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! And today we're going to show you how to make this Christmas card. It's using 3 stamp sets and I'll show you the stamp sets. The first one is the sheltering tree and we'll be using just the tree image here, which we'll be embossing with silver embossing powder. The second stamp set comes from the Flurry of Wishes and we'll be using Merry Christmas. And the last stamp set we'll be using is Colorful Seasons, and we'll be using the sentiment here and also the small snowflake. So our first step is to bring in our stamp, or we'll get our mat ready because all of our stamps are photopolymer. And I'll show you our card base, which I've done ahead of time just to save time on the video. This is a piece of real red cardstock and it's cut 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And I took the Woodlands embossing folder and ran it through the Big Shot to create this nice image for a background. Our next step is to take a piece of Whisper White, and this is cut 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. And we're going to be heat embossing this with silver embossing powder. So we'll take our embossing buddy and just rub this static and fingerprints off of the paper. And then we'll bring in our Versamark ink along with our stamp, which is the tree. And we're just going to ink up the tree with the Versamark, making sure you've got plenty of the Versamark on. And then we're just going to take the tree, and I'm looking at the top branches and left and right, and also the trunk, making sure everything is straight and aligned properly. So we'll just set that down and we'll just lift up. Alright, so our next step, look at the Versamark out of the way. Our next step is to bring in the silver embossing powder, and I will be using a paper plate just in case any of the embossing powder doesn't go in the right places. So we'll just pick this panel up and we'll just sprinkle this on, and then we'll just put it right back into the bowl here. And I'm going to show you right here, I didn't get very well, so we'll try adding just a little bit more to that area. We'll just tap it up into the plate. That's better, and we'll just get rid of the excess. Alright, so we'll set those two things aside for now. And we're going to bring in our Stampin' Up! Heat tool, and we're going to heat set this. It doesn't take too long to heat set. The area that does take a little bit longer is the trunk, but once your tool is all at a high temperature, it'll go pretty quickly. Alright, starting to melt right now, and I'm just working on the branches, top to bottom. And when you get to the trunk area, it does take a little bit longer because there's more embossing powder there. Almost done. Okay, looks great. So turn off the heat tool. Alright, so our next step is we're going to stamp the sentiment Merry Christmas in the bottom here, and we'll be using real red ink. So we'll get our ink pad ready, along with the sentiment Merry Christmas from the Flurry of Wishes. And I'm going to center this right underneath the trunk, centered across straight, hopefully. And there we go. Perfect. Okay, so we're done with the real red ink for now. And we'll move our piercing mat out of the way. And the next piece of paper we're going to be working with is from the Quilted Christmas Designer Series pack. And this is cut 3 by 4 inches. And we're going to just run adhesive on the back side of this panel here, the one that we just heat embossed. And I like to add a little bit in the middle because that's where the main image is. and then your Whisper White panel will lay flat. And just in case I have any of that real red ink on my fingers, I'm just going to rub from the back side. Okay, that's pretty good. So our next step is to add this panel to a piece of Dazzling Diamonds glimmer paper, and this is cut 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, and we're going to use Stampin' Dimensionals to do that. So we're just going to add 5, 1 in each corner and 1 in the middle. I'm just going to make sure those are pressed down really firmly, and then we'll just remove the backings. I find the backings all over my house. They just seem to stick everywhere. Okay, so we're going to take this panel and we're going to add it to the Dazzling Diamonds glimmer paper with 1/4 inch on all 4 sides. I'm just going to press where those dimensionals are, flip it over, and give it a good rub so I know it's secure. So now with this panel, we're going to be adding it onto the card base. So I'd like to use dimensionals again, so we'll take another 5 and add them to all 4 corners and the center. This is a pretty quick card that you can mass produce very easily. So if you're looking to create a lot of Christmas cards, I would suggest this one. One more. Okay, so now we're just going to center this on the front side of the card base and just press down. And again, I'm going to flip this over and just press from the back side, just in case that real red ink is on my fingers. All right, so we're going to set this aside right now because we're going to work on the inside panel. Again, we're going to bring our Stampin' Pierce mat in along with the scrap paper, and we're going to be working with a panel that is Whisper White, and it's cut 4 by 5 1/4, and we're going to take our embossing buddy and just rub it around in the middle here, and we'll be using a combination of Versamark ink, Real Red ink, and clear embossing powder. So what we're going to do first is we're going to bring in our sentiment, and we're just going to ink that up with Versamark. Okay, our next step is to take our Real Red, and then we're just going to ink this up, and then we're going to stamp right down in the middle. Okay, that looks good. We'll push that out of the way. Now we're going to take our clear embossing powder, and we're going to cover up the Real Red with the clear embossing powder. Again, I'm going to bring my plate in just in case any excess does go off the area. We'll just tap that off. So what it does, the clear embossing powder, it kind of mutes the Real Red, but you wait until we heat set this and it's going to look amazing. So let's put these, get these out of the way, and we'll bring in our Stampin' Up! Heat tool one more time. And we're going to heat set. Hopefully you can see this. It is turning, and that looks really nice. You can use any Stampin' Up! Ink color to get the same effect using Versamark ink along with the clear embossing powder. So we're all set with that. And I'll try to bring this up. Hopefully you can see that on camera. All right, so now we're going to let that cool off, and we are going to stamp on our envelope. I always stamp on my envelope, so I chose the Snowflake from Colorful Seasons, the smaller one, and I'm just going to ink it up with Real Red ink, and I'm going to stamp 3 snowflakes in the bottom left corner here, just to add a little bit of detail to your envelope. You don't need a lot, and if you really wanted to get this little corner piece, you can do that as well. Just put it in there. There, that fills in that little corner. All right, so we'll get those out of the way, and all we have left to do is add our panel, our inside panel, to the card itself. So we'll take our adhesive, and I just usually do one row of the adhesive, and we're going to use 1/4 inch at the top, left and right, and we're just going to press along. There you go. So here's your card we made today, and we used the silver embossing powder and some dazzling diamonds glimmer paper to add a little jazz to it, and the background we chose the Woodlands embossing folder. So if you'd like any of these products, please visit my website at inspiredbygram.com. Thank you for watching and have a great day.